Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. And I am really excited about this episode because I have Tracey Pontarelli here. And, we were just chatting before we hit record, and we both just kind of jive on the same topic when it comes to social media and being authentic and being very deliberate in our business and in our lives and being intentional online. And then we're going to talk about the niche. And you guys know that I talk about this all the time, but I think it's awesome to have someone else on who has a maybe similar or a different perspective, because I really believe that you can learn so much from different people, even though they're in my own niche. So I know that was a long-winded introduction, but welcome to the show, Tracey.
Thank you, Allison. It's so much fun to be here. I'm so excited.
I am too. And before we get into the whole social media mindset, because I know we're going to fall down a rabbit hole, I'd like you to just take this opportunity just to tell my audience who you are and why you became an entrepreneur and, just kind of where you're at now in your business.
Sure. So greetings from the Big Apple. I live in New York City on the Upper East Side, and I've been here for quite some time. I grew up in a little small town in Rhode Island. Little small town. Now I've ended up in the biggest city. And my career started in marketing and public relations. So I worked in a number of top firms here in Manhattan, some of the biggest brands on the planet, really loved the work. And it was very busy work. My husband works in finance. We were two crazy, young, childless people. And then we had kids. And, it's funny, Allison, I always think about this. If you had told me before I had kids that I would have ever stayed home, I would have told you were nuts. The thought of it it never even crossed my mind. And of course, then you have kids and your priorities completely shift. And I found myself very frustrated trying to serve the needs of these big corporate clients. And I just had a moment where I realized it was no longer serving me. And so I decided to stay home, and I kind of stepped out completely for a little bit. I did all of the play dates and volunteered for all of the things and just really embraced that time. But I really missed working. I think moms, you talk to mompreneurs, I think moms sit on a spectrum. There are some that know that they always want to be home with their babies. It's like their number one goal. There's other people that would never imagine doing that. And then the rest of us kind of sit in between and we kind of float back and forth on the spectrum. And so I found my way back into wellness and fitness, which is really one of my core passions. And that's how I found my way into the online space. And what really helped me, and this will be part of our conversation, was that background in brand marketing. People will say, oh, it's because you're a wellness expert. No, I say it's because I'm actually a marketing expert that likes wellness. That has really helped me to be so successful in this. And that's kind of how I ended up here. I just kept following my passions and having the courage to chase the things that got me the most excited.
I love that story. And as you were talking about your story, I'm sitting here shaking my head. Yes. Yep, that is kind of where I was, even though I knew I always wanted to be home with my kids. Yeah. But, in my family and at the time, it was just expected of me because I was the oldest, go to college and go get the corporate job, and be amazing at what you're doing. And I did all of that. But in the background, I was like, I don't like this. I got out of corporate. But you're right. You're kind of on that spectrum, or almost on that, that rocky boat of either you're at the front of the boat, you're at the back of the boat. What do I want to do? I love my children, but you're driving me crazy at the same time. And you almost want to feel worthy of doing something for yourself.
I know. It's a really interesting thing. I think moms we are the people who make everything happen. Mm-hmm. But mothers in particular, I think we're the ones that have to have the courage to chart our own paths, because if we don't, no one's going to do it for us, and just have full permission to do what it is, the balance that makes you happy, right? And there's never been a better time to actually figure out how to design your own life than right now.
Absolutely. And it's never too late.
No,
I
never
think,
too late.
yes, I think there's too many moms out there thinking, well, my kids are too old, or, I'm already this age. Why start now? There's always room for you to start.
Always,
Yes. Well, I
always.
know we're going to get into
Yep.
social media mindset today.
Mhm.
I talk a lot about mindset when I'm online on Instagram and even in my show. But I would like you to share your perspective on what does mindset have to do with social media?
Yeah. I love mindset. It's my favorite topic. So here's where I'll start. Everything we think is creating an attraction. I am a big believer in the law of attraction and this idea of magnetism. We are pulling things toward us and pushing things away from us all the time, including how we think. And we cannot outrun our thoughts and beliefs. And we won't, over the long time at least, we will not sustain leveling up beyond what we think we're worthy of. So none of it happens really. The growth never really happens until we really decide we're going to believe fully in ourselves and really work on the mindset. And I know you know this because you talk about it all the time. The mindset work is the hardest work in the respect that you cannot sugarcoat it. You got to get in there. You got to do the work. You got to do the work. And once you do that, and once you see how the brain works, and once you understand that it's all just stories that we're telling ourselves, and they're not true, they're not helpful. And once you realize you can start to rewrite your own scripts, everything opens up. It's really amazing how it happens. And then the other thing I'll just say is, and you talk a lot about authentic marketing. If you don't feel congruent in your life, it's never going to feel really good. And so you're never really going to get the kind of success you really desire, because there's going to be a part of you that doesn't feel like you're being real or truthful to yourself. You got to start to line the stuff up. That all goes with the mindset work. That's everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And going back to the mindset work,
Yeah.
let's dig in a little more there, because I bet there's going to be a lot of mompreneurs listening who either have started a business or they've had a business for a while. It's not where they want it to be. Maybe they've been doing it for 2 years, 5 years, maybe 10 years. And that sucker is just not scaling. And they're down, with the world right now, balancing family life and the house and the kids. And they get to a point where they're stuck. So what do? They start looking for external help. Maybe I need a new business coach. Maybe I need to download an online program. Maybe I need to read a professional development book, which I am like, my room is full of books. And I thought to myself the other day, I've been buying personal development books for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
They really do anything for me?
Right.
Maybe a tip or two that I highlighted. And then did I ever look at it again?
Right.
Like, we have to think about that. So when you said you got to get to the mindset and really dig in and do the work, where does someone start with that? Because it's so easy to say, and then we might turn around and say, okay, I need to think more positive. Yeah. I don't think it's just that simple.
Right. Right. Well, so I love that you said this, because most people, anybody that's a personal growth junkie has like their personal growth graveyard of books, right? One of the things that I really like to do is to dig into something and start to study it. Like, take a practice, doesn't have to be a big one, but take a practice and dig into it. So for example, I'm a huge fan of journaling, and journaling again is, significant work, but a gratitude journal will help, but just a daily journal where you dig in, be honest with yourself, write things down, really start to look at the stories that you're telling yourself. And then the second thing, I'm such a huge fan of meditating. And you could start super, super easy, because again, once you start to see that your thoughts aren't real, you can start to dismantle them. When you're caught up in a whole bunch of stories, like you're saying, like, things get challenging. I mean, No one's denying that the past 2 years has taught us nothing else is stuff gets thrown at you. You're never going to know what it is. If you can start to see the thoughts that go on in your head, and you can separate yourself from your thoughts, all of a sudden you start to take more control over who you are. And that starts to change other things. So yeah, I mean, those are my biggest ones, like practical tips is journaling and meditating. Those are two things that I do every single day. I'll decide to dig into a piece of work instead of running through as many personal growth books as I can. I'll pick one. Like right now I'm doing the 4 Agreements. And I don't know if anyone's read the 4 Agreements. It's great. It's a little book, but I'm reading it, and then I'm reading it again. And then I'm reading it again. I'm not trying to see how many books I can get through. I'm really trying to study the book. And we do that when we're younger. We really study things. And then as we get older, we study it until we can learn it, and then we move on. So I think really kind of digging into the internal work shows up externally.
That's a really good tip, is to go deeper with a professional or like a personal development book and not be reading a bunch of them. And I just read, speaking of reading, I just read a great tip just last night, I believe, by Susie Moore.
Yeah.
And she has a book called Let It Be Easy.
Okay.
And she had a great tip in there because it was mindset work about the dreams that you have and the visions that you want, but are they matching your daily thoughts? Yes. So she said on the left-hand side of a piece of paper, where do you want to be in the next year or 5 years? What are your dreams? And then on the other side of the paper, well, what did you do daily last week? And how did you feel about it? Were you always in that mind space of this is too hard? Oh, I can't believe I have to do this. I have to run all these errands with the kids. I have to, make all these dinners, and I have all this tasks to do for work, and I'm behind. Well, are your current thoughts and processes matching where you want to be?
That's so good.
What a great activity.
It's so good.
Deep.
Yeah. Right. Because if you're doing the activity, but you're telling yourself it's so hard and the have to's, we get to do everything. We get to decide what we do most of the time. And if we don't get to decide what we do, we get to decide how we think about what we're doing. We always get to decide something. Right. We always get to decide something. And the minute we think that life is out of our control, this is one of my favorite quotes, and I think it's from Brendan Burchard, is that our life happens by design or by default.
Ooh, I've never heard that one. Those are your two
options, right? It either happens to you or you decide how it happens. Those are your two options. And we always have a choice in how we decide to look at it.
I love that. And you were talking about to-do lists, and I just read another tip. Never make your list the to-do list. It's I get to-do list. I get to do this today.
Yeah.
And then you will really change what you put on that list.
Yeah. And how you think about approaching all the activities.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
That's so good.
So good. Well, now I want to move into that we're really working on the mindset and really digging deep into your daily thoughts. How can mompreneurs, begin to be or create that magnetic presence on social media?
Yeah. So I'm sure you've had this conversation with your listeners many times. The first thing, in my opinion, is to get really clear on your personal brand on social media. And that's understanding who you are and exactly who you're talking to. And once you do that and have the courage and the knowing that will lead to more opportunities, not less opportunities, everything gets easier. And so the biggest mistake I see so many of the people that I coach make is they are afraid to narrow down their focus because they think they're going to miss out on an opportunity because they've gotten so specific. And what ends up happening is when you get more specific, the people who you're talking to know it, and you open up opportunities. So that's really just digging in. And I also think the mistake that we're all making this stuff up as we go along. So if you change your mind, if you decide to pivot, if you narrow your focus, if you expand, if you play, if it doesn't work, you can change your mind. Like, stop worrying about that it's all written in stone. So many people, both Allison, I'm sure you and I have followed, started off in one place and have moved to a very different place in their businesses. We've watched a lot of people grow, expand into different things. Once you have an authentic connection with people, they'll follow you on your journey. It's okay. Just have the courage to get more focused.
And I would add to that, I think that you should also have the courage to repel people.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, because I think people are afraid, like, well, I'll get unfollowers, or, this so-and-so person that I've kind of known for the last 2 years might not follow me. Well, are they going to work with you anyways?
Right.
Are they really going to be paying your bills? No.
Right. I agree. If you're trying to please everyone, you're really talking to no one.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what is your thoughts or perspective on like the biggest limiting beliefs that you see mompreneurs having when it comes to social media?
It's quite simply that people think they're not good at it.
Mm.
I'm not good at social media. I'm not good at that stuff. I'm not good at coming up with what to post. And my argument back is, once you know who you are and who you're talking to, first of all, your own content will come more naturally to you. But we don't need to be the creators of all the content. We need to be the providers of good content. So I often think that people think that they need to come up with the content, when really what you need to do is just offer value, right? Nobody cares if Tracey came up with the quote or Allison came up with the quote. If I post a great quote from Allison that connects to my audience, they get value out of it. That we overthink,
Yes.
like the level of contribution that we need to provide.
Yeah, and I think you're dead on when you say about the whole like a lot of people, when they hear the term authentic content, they think it has to be something like brand new. And I'm like, no, pump the brakes. No, it doesn't. To me, authentic content is just taking what you've learned and then you just infuse your personality and what you experienced with it.
Right.
That's your authentic content. That's all it is.
Learn it, teach it.
Yeah.
Learn it, teach it. Yep.
Absolutely. And going back to, I can't do social media because again, we're comparing what other people are doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I always go back to the 3 C's, and the first C is clarity on your own brand.
Right.
And then that'll help you get the authentic content rolling.
Yeah.
And then it's just being consistent. And I know everyone's so sick of hearing the word consistent, because then they want that to be defined by somebody else. But here's the good news. You can control that. Yeah. You get to define what consistency is. It's just finding something that is sustainable that you can do over and over and over. And I'm talking how you're going to show up on social media for the next 2 to 3 years.
Right. And again, this is one of those comments that might repel some people, but when I look for people to connect with on social media and somebody isn't consistent with what they're posting, my perception of that person is they're not serious. My instant perception is they're not taking this seriously. If you're saying that if your bio says you're one thing and then you haven't posted since November of 2021, my perception is you're not really serious about it.
Or you're not reliable.
Or you're unreliable. Yeah. And I couldn't agree more. When I look at all the things I've done in my career to make me successful, the number one thing is I am consistent as all hell. I am consistent. You can count on me. I am showing up, and I do it. And I work out 6 days a week. I drink water every day. Like, I stay steady, consistent on the things that are most important to me, period.
And I think that's the biggest lesson for our listeners is we're not talking about consistency on social media.
Right.
You're talking about consistency in your life.
Yeah.
Because if you're consistent in your life, then that is just going to spill over to your business. That's going to spill over to your relationships or whatever else is going on. But you have to have that consistency. Like, yes, I am consistent with the morning routine. I am consistent with exercising and eating certain foods and doing this. I am consistent with how I show up in homeschooling. I am consistent with the certain tasks I do on each day for my business. Was that easy in the beginning to create that? No, but you have to start somewhere.
Yeah. I'm going to add a fourth C onto yours because the clarity, creating the content, the consistency all creates the confidence.
Ooh.
And Brendan Bouchard calls this a confidence competence loop. Like when you build the confidence, so the confidence comes from the doing regularly. And when you do things regularly, you get more confident. And then when you get more confident, it gets easier to do it regularly because you're not doubting yourself every time you do it because you become more confident. And the only way to get more confident, the only way to build the confidence is to just go out and do it more.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Studying it, thinking about it, all good does not help you build your confidence. Like nothing builds confidence like just doing it over and over again.
Exactly. You actually have to execute and take action to get the confidence. The confidence isn't given to you and then you're going to do it.
Right.
And that's like the biggest thing I see on social media when people freak out about doing a reel or doing video. I'm like, did you think I just woke up one day and sat up in bed and went, thank you, confidence gods, I got it today? Like, no. And I'm still like, you get a little armpit sweaty or you feel like your brow is sweating when that ring light's on too long and you're doing a video. Like, no, it's like exactly what you said is you actually have to do it. And then the confidence comes later.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think we also, most of us just don't have a big enough following, let's just be honest, where if you do something and it's not terrific, it doesn't even really matter that much.
Right.
Like, stop overthinking like the impact that you have. Just go have fun, figure it out as you go along, and just know you're going to get better if you do it more. Right.
Well, and I think too, like, let's take this podcast, for example. I typically don't really edit my podcast. I kind of leave in the, like the stumbles because I feel that is way more relatable and it humanizes the entrepreneur. And I think that's what's missing in the online space. Mm-hmm. There's too much of this, I don't want to say perfection, but we're almost putting these people, idolizing them, putting them up on pedestals. I'm sorry, I'm not going to relate to that.
Right.
I want someone relatable that I would actually approach in a coffee shop if I were to actually see them, because I would know their stumbles and their quirks. That's what we want to see.
Yeah. So I started my podcast in the fourth quarter of last year, and I'd love to have you on. So that will be one of our plans. Yes. And the thing that was holding me back was I felt like this will be the thing that everyone will be like nodding. I felt like it had to be perfect. Mm-hmm. And I just thought, well, I have to know more. I have to understand more. And then I realized that my podcast is really just a forum for me to share what was on my mind with the people that I care about, right? It's just it's like writing a blog, but you're talking. And once I got over myself on that, I was excited to do it. And it's become so much fun for me. There's so many things I think about. I think, oh, I can't wait to bring that up on my podcast. Now it's become something I really look forward to. Sometimes the doorbell rings. Sometimes the dog goes nuts. I agree with you. I'll start with the recording. I'm like, okay, let's see what happens. Because I live in an apartment in New York City. The bell rings all the time. I can never plan for it. But that's what I've kind of gotten to a place where it's authentic, it's imperfect, and that's life. Life is beautiful and imperfect. And
it goes back to what you said in the beginning of the show is providing value.
Yep.
And that's why people show up and they want to listen to your show or read your blog post or watch your videos, They're there for the value. They're there to learn something from you. They don't care what your hair looks like. They don't care how many times you say unless it's every other word, then that might be a problem.
Right. But if you do it more, you'll get better.
Exactly.
So
Oh my goodness.
when this airs, it'll be a couple of weeks past your 5 trends for Instagram. And I would encourage everyone to go back and listen to that and listen to it over and over again. That authentic content is trending. Not only are we saying it's really impactful, it's just people are kind of sick of seeing the polished versions of each other. And, if the pandemic taught us nothing else, it's, that, we were all hanging out in each other's houses. I mean, the news was from people's living rooms. So we're all used to seeing what each other really looks like. And so just know that you can just be completely yourself. And that's exactly what people want to see.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I want people to understand that like perfection is a lie. Perfection does not exist. And I don't like the term, and I think a lot of us has grown up with this. We probably were told this by our parents or teachers or even, sports coaches. Practice makes perfect.
Right.
We grew up with that, and that's a lie. Practice just makes improvements.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
But you're not going to get the improvements without executing a plan, without taking action.
Right.
Awesome.
Right. I love yoga. And one of the things I love about yoga is they call it a practice. And when you do yoga, it's always a yoga practice. That's what you're doing every time you're on the mat. And the whole idea of yoga is that you practice breathing and moving and staying present so that when you get off the mat, you can go be that way in your life. Everything's practice for whatever is next. Everything's leading us to whatever the next thing is. And if we look at it in that playful way, we don't get too tied to, okay, here's the final thing that I think people get stuck on is the outcome of their post, right? And so this is where I think my marketing background has really come in handy. I don't take the success or, if something's a real dud as a personal reflection on who I am as a human. Some things fly, some things don't. I look at it with curiosity. When things work, I try to pay attention to that to see if I can repeat that and do it again. Like, what was it that made that work so well? And if something doesn't work over time, then I just know that's not working. And I just use it as an opportunity to refine, pivot, change some things around. So, I think we get really, especially with reels, and I know you talk about reels.
Yes.
We can put a lot of work into a reel. It takes a lot of time. And then nobody likes it.
Yeah, really. You can't attach, you can't be attached to the outcomes. The only thing you can control is your actions. And then if things don't turn out the way you were hoping, you can't get down about it. You just have to look at what were the tactics that you did, analyze the tactics, and see what you can change or see what you can improve.
Right.
Don't worry about the outcomes.
Right. And
it goes back to that consistency. If you're consistent in your life and business, it will happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Tracey, this was such an awesome conversation. Thank you so much. So do me a favor.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. Tell us your podcast name and then tell us where we can find you.
Yes. So the podcast is the Magnetic Marketing and Mindset Show. And you can find me on Instagram at Coach Tracey _P. So Coach Tracey with an EY _P. And on there is my links to all of the stuff, the podcasts, my courses. I'm doing a free personal branding challenge, a 3-day free personal branding challenge that people can grab. That's like just a super easy way for you to just start thinking about how to narrow down your focus a little bit. And those are really the best places to find me. My website is traceypontarelli.com. And I'm always answering my DMs. So definitely can reach me there.
Well, thank you so much. And I will make sure that everything is in the show notes for our listeners. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you.